Hi everyone, I'm Shauna and welcome to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be talking all about makeup ruts and makeup boredom. Why do we feel this way about our collections and what can we do about it? This video came from this experience that I had recently. I looked at my makeup bag as I was getting ready and I actually sighed. That was a little unexpected and a little confusing because getting ready, putting on my makeup is generally a highlight of my day and something that I have a lot of fun with. And it took me a second to realize that I was feeling a little bit bored and uninspired, and I had gotten myself into a makeup rut. I have been spending so much time trying to curate my collection, hone in on my preferences, learn what they are so I can shop strategically and for things that I will actually love and wear. So this did not entirely make sense, and this video was an effort to figure out where my makeup rut was coming from and what I can do about it. So the first reason is my number one reason for my makeup rut, and hopefully if you've been feeling this way, if you've been feeling uninspired and you've been in your own rut, hopefully hearing some of these things will make you feel like you're not alone and hopefully reinvigorate your interest and love in your collection and ultimately just find a way out of this rut that you might be in. Before we get into the video, I would really love it if you would subscribe if you like content like this, fashion and beauty content, conscious consumer content, capsule wardrobing, lifestyle content. I would love to have you here. My biggest problem was repetition, and not in the sense of wearing the exact same things every day, because I have made really big efforts to try and use other products and dip into multiple parts of my collection. Now for me, the repetition happens the most on eyes, but also lips and cheeks. But eyes have been like number one for sure. I have been recreating the same eyeshadow look with multiple products. I'm gonna show you just an example. In the packaging, these things don't really look the same. Well, maybe they do actually. Okay, so I'll show you a couple of the culprits. The first is one of my favorite eyeshadows of the moment, a little quirky. And then I've also been wearing Reflect by Hourglass. Yes, I guess they do look way more similar. I was individually drawn to these and they produce the same eyeshadow look. A third option is this guy right here. It's this like bronzy looking eyeshadow looks. I have been doing this exact same one shadow look for like 6 months. Maybe not 6 months, 4 months at least. I have used all of these at separate points, but I am recreating the same look. So I feel like I'm doing the same thing all the time. And the problem here is not just the product, but it's also the technique. I found that repetition can like occur not just in the colors that we pick, but the techniques that we use. Even if I was using drastically different colors, one shadow looks can just come to look the same. And honestly, in my collection, there's nothing that's like drastically unlike everything else. I've also been doing this with the ABH palette, layering a bronzy kind of orangey shade and then a gold on top looks the same as the other three things. I don't know why it didn't occur to me earlier that all of these are essentially the same, but they are. So the solution here is to just reach for something else. Put these away and it's time to reach for something. The Modern Renaissance palette has other colors in there to use that aren't orangey bronzes. So there's more that I can do there. And as far as eyeshadow goes, I have lots of other single shadows that I can use that are not these bronzy colors. And it's time to pull out something new. Number two is owning duplicates of the same product. I don't mean actually owning exact dupes, things that are the same formula or exact same color, because technically like a little quirky and Hourglass are not dupes for each other. They're not exact. They're similar though. I own so many blushes in the same color family. I'm gonna show you quick because these are not all the same colors. They're not the same textures or the same formulas, and there's a little bit of variety. So let's just do like a little show and tell. Number one is my Bare Minerals blush. This one has more brown. Then we have Melba, which is much more peach. And I think you can see that these colors look pretty different in the pants. Now, Melba, Warm Soul, similar. Bare Minerals, Patrick Ta, similar. Tower 28, Tarte, similar. And when you put these all together, like the Patrick Ta blush is the most brown, most like a bronzer. Put these two together, these look so different. This one is more pink, this one is clearly more brown, bordering on a bronzer. But when you look at these tones together, and I'm gonna have to show a photo of all of these together, they are looking basically the same on the face. What happened here is that I found my color story and then I just went with it. And while we have like more peachy tones and more bronzer tones, they're all warm, all in like the same kind of color family or adjacent families. Oh, and also the Glossier. That is 7 blush products. That is the majority of my collection. I've had these products around a lot. The Bare Minerals has been in the Project Pan. MAC and Tarte have been in my makeup bag hanging around. I've had one of these in my makeup bag for the last 6 months. So despite trying to pick other things, they're still looking the same. Another example here to, I think, illustrate my point. These glosses, not dupes for each other at all. Very different color stories. However, they're all sheer. And everything sheer ends up looking the same, and it basically has like a similar effect on the lips. Yeah, the undertones are slightly different, but they all end up looking the same. And if I'm going for a sheer gloss, then it almost is irrelevant what I pick because it looks the same. And then I add in something like this. This is the Revlon Glossy Balm, different color, but it's like similar tones as this, similar tones as this. I've also had a couple of reds, like red glossy lip products that have been floating around too. I honestly think that a little bit of decluttering is in order because there's too much crossover with the blush where I just feel like I'm wearing the same thing over and over again. And getting rid of 1 or 2 may just be the move. Number 3, which I think pairs nicely with number 2, is overbuying the same tones, color family, or product type. Now, this can look like buying the same shade of blush 6 times over in different formulas. And I've justified keeping some of these because they're in different formulas, or I didn't realize how similar they were until I put them all together. This can also look like buying eyeshadow palettes in the same color story, like a berry color story over and over again. It would be like owning the Huda Beauty Nudes palette, then buying, or I don't know what order these came in, then also having the Natasha Denona Love palette, and then also having, buying the new Natasha Denona Retro, and then also having like the Forever Flawless Allure palette, and then also having like some of the ColourPop Mauve palettes. You're gonna feel like you're wearing the same thing over and over again if you've overbought in one particular color story or family. What happened with me is that I found a product category that I really liked, a sheer gloss, because I could go through these really quickly and I wore them a lot. They were my go-to staple product. So I bought them over and over again and asked them for gifts over and over again. And while in theory, I've come to know my preference and I know that this is true, that I like this thing, but I've overbought in this category. These are just 3 examples. I have more in my collection. The same thing with the blushes. The same thing can be true for eyeshadows. This can also apply to something like foundations. If you're someone who likes a little bit of variety, like a tinted moisturizer, and then you also like a light and a medium coverage, you can overbuy in one of those things and then just feel like you're wearing the same thing all the time, despite your intentions not to. This can feel particularly alluring if your preferences about something have recently changed. The main culprit behind all of that blush coloring is because I, for the first time in my makeup wearing life, liked an orange toned blush. I'd only ever worn pinks, and I was like really strict about that and had like very few that I panned and then rebought. So I got super excited and then got all of these blushes one way or another, and now I have like 6-7 blushes that I'll never get through and look the same, so I feel the same every day. I think I've said that 12 times already. Number 4 is not washing your makeup brushes. And yes, this is important for hygiene, but I'm not coming from the hygiene perspective right now. If you haven't washed your makeup brushes in just a little while and you're dipping into different colors, like you put on, the colors are actually gonna look identical, because if you've done this week after week and you kind of mixed here and there, there's likely residue on your brush that's carrying over from the last product that you use. And while I knew this in the back of my mind, I didn't realize how much this was affecting my makeup looks, because I was not so much cream into powder and like swapping that way, but I had been jumping from different powder products like eyeshadows and not properly cleaning my brushes after, and then things were looking eerily similar. While these colors are already similar, not washing our brushes can make them feel more similar than they actually are. Number 5 is owning a collection full of products that you bought to try. I've talked about buying to try before, and one of you actually asked to see like a full video on this concept, and at the moment I don't really feel like I have a ton to say about that. I brought up this concept in like my makeup overconsumption video. I can link that in the cards. Buying to try is exactly what it sounds like. The only intention behind the product is to try it out. There's no further thought about the lifespan of the product, if you would like it, if you would use it, if you already have something in your collection that would dupe it, like thinking about all of those kinds of things. Would you want to use it to completion? Could you see yourself using it 100 times? There's no greater thought than the try. To me, this is different than just buying something you've never tried before. There's lots of times where every indication will tell you that you will likely like that product. You've often done research too. So just because something is brand new to you doesn't make it a buy to try. A buy to try is literally buying a product just to try, and that's the only thought that really goes into that purchase. This used to be me, and I had tons of products that I just bought because I heard somebody talk about, somebody said that it was a great product or a great color, that they loved it, or it was a new release, and I just like wanted to buy something new. Now, if this kind of product makes up a large portion of your collection, that means that there's a large portion of your collection that's not curated, that you don't actually know if you'll like, or meets any kind of criteria or preferences that you have. I did this a lot with tinted moisturizers, and I owned at one point like maybe 13 foundations, but 5 were of the tinted moisturizer variety. So while I had a beefy number, a big portion of my collection was products that I would never really wear. So if you own a lot of these items, then maybe you haven't tried them and you don't actually know if you'll like them, so there's a hesitancy to use them. Maybe they don't match a color preference, so you only like nude or like orangey or brown blushes, but then you bought some pink ones to try. They don't match your current preferences, and you may not have any indication to use them. Or you tried it out and you don't like it, but you haven't decluttered, and maybe you want to give it another chance. Having a collection with a lot of these to try products or products that you bought to try can mean that there's like a large number of your collection that's not actually usable because you don't like it, or you're not sure if you'll like it, or it doesn't meet any of your preferences. So it can actually make your really big makeup collection feel small. Or maybe you already have a small makeup collection and it feels even smaller. Next up is not shopping your stash. If we have a variety of products, we're people who like variety in our makeup routines, our makeup lives, then we probably know we should shop our stash. I know that, and sometimes I've been too lazy to do it, or I have been forgetful and I haven't done it, or I felt like I should only do that on camera. So because it hasn't been long enough since the last one, I probably shouldn't film one yet. Therefore, I'll struggle through a makeup bag that I don't actually love. Recently, I felt it was time to buy a new eyeshadow palette. I didn't have an actual eyeshadow palette in mind. The thought was just, Shauna, I think it's time to buy an eyeshadow palette because your collection just doesn't feel right. I'm so bored. Shauna, all of your eyeshadow palettes are the same. You need a little bit more variety in your life. This was the thought that I had. I was getting makeup blindness where I hadn't done a product rotation in a while. All of the things that were in my makeup bag were things that I've just talked about earlier in the video. I was having the problems I talked about earlier in the video. And I kind of forgot that I owned other makeup, that there were other things I could use beyond what was in that small bag. In the moment, I went, Shauna, why don't you just go in your bathroom, pick a couple of new things, and then we can reevaluate to see if a makeup palette would be good. That was all I really needed. And I kind of felt like something wasn't right when I had this feeling of I should just buy something. Whenever I get that way, feeling like I need a new makeup product without actually having a product in mind, generally means that I'm in a spending mood, I'm being influenced by somebody, I'm feeling like makeup boredom, things like that. And it's not the same when you actually have an intention, a product that you really like and you feel like would be good in your collection. A little shop my stash was all I needed to pick a couple of new products, and it's really easy to spruce up a makeup look or your current rotation. The last thing I want to talk about is inspiration. I've talked about this a little bit before, so I'll try and keep this brief, but recently I had realized that I felt like I was being overly critical about the makeup industry, new releases, and my own collection. I developed this little persona on the channel, not as though I was being inauthentic, but I was being overly critical or being critical because I wanted to be thoughtful about my purchases, but I felt like a lot of people were relying on me to be critical too. They were coming to me because they needed to hear, I don't know, a voice of reason or somebody who is asking them to be thoughtful about their purchases too. Being critical is not inherently a bad thing, and it's done me a lot of good, but I went over that step of being too critical, where I sucked the fun out of this thing that's supposed to be fun. I also took a break from Instagram. And I follow a lot of folks who do project pans, who do shop my stashes on their Instagram, who share their makeup looks, who will do flat lays of their products. And Instagram stopped being a place of inspiration for me for a while and just this really stressful place. But after coming back, what I realized is that I did get a lot of inspiration from Instagram. I feel like Instagram has more of the people like me, more of the conscious consumer kind of people than on YouTube. So there's way more people to get inspiration from, at least in my opinion. And getting back on Instagram and looking at all of these photos and videos reignited my interest and creativity in my own makeup collection. I wasn't interested in buying anything new, but I was now asking what can I do differently? What eyeshadow am I interested in wearing right now? What's something I could play with? What's something I haven't used in a while? I've had a couple of products that I've said that I would use. I have these two purple eyeshadows that I said that I wanted to use 6 months ago in a makeup look and then never did. I also own a duochrome. Now I only have one, but I haven't worn that in a year. I haven't really kind of gone in and experimented with my collection and tried different looks or techniques in a long time. We don't need money to do those things, to play with what we already have. And I feel like I lost a bit of my own inspiration, but it's really quickly reignited. So finding new sources of inspiration are free and can get us more excited about our collections. Most of the time, to get out of the makeup rut, we don't actually have to spend any more money. And shopping our stash, changing out our products, and finding new sources of inspiration and washing our brushes will go a long way. But what I realized in this exercise is that decluttering is probably going to be helpful too, like a little declutter in a quarantine to make sure I'm not getting rid of anything I would regret. I also think this was a really great reflective exercise to realize as well where the gaps are in my collection. One of the things I realized with the blushes is that I think that a gap would be pink blushes. I have one mauve, which is a MAC blush, and then I have one reddish purplish blush, which is Patrick Ta, which is like really fall, and then I own the pink Glossier Cloud Paint. I think it's in Puff. So those are the other 3 blushes that aren't shown here. And Puff is a cream, so it doesn't work all of the year. And then the Patrick Ta blush is like really fall. It is different, like very different than any of the colors I've shown you, but only really seasonally appropriate in fall, maybe winter. So I have one mauve pink blush that I can really count on as a staple. It might truly be wise or beneficial to bring in one other pink blush, or maybe that one mauve is enough, and pulling that one out and my Patrick Ta blush for fall, that will be alone enough to kind of get me out of this makeup rut, and it's worth trying that before buying anything new. The same is true for my glosses. It might be wise to stop buying these sparkly sheer glosses and the next gloss that I pick up be something that's a little mauvey and maybe a little creamy. I think that one purchase could make a really big difference in diversifying my collection in a meaningful way. So that's everything from me today. I hope you enjoyed this video and chatting a little bit about makeup ruts. I would love to know if you're in a makeup rut, what you've done to get out of it, and if you found any of these tips or ideas helpful. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again around here soon.